And welcome back to the Mark Moses Show as we are going to do this again. Get you ready for UCF football coming up this Saturday night on the road in Boca at FAU. I am joined by Eric Lopez with Black and Gold Banneret and Trace Trylko with Sons of UCF. We'll start with Eric. Eric, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing all right. I wish me and Trace were be talking under better circumstances than following a loss.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Trace, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Always good to talk with you, Mark, and of course with Elo. Win or lose.
I understand. The team goes to 1-1 after that tough loss last Friday night. I was there. I saw Trace. I know Eric, he was doing his post-game show. Let's start with Eric. What happened last Friday night?
Woo!
That's a loaded question right off the top. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, how much time you got? I mean, obviously, UCF, I thought, controlled the first half, and then a missed short field goal, and then the momentum changed. Offensive line can't block. Louisville's figured that out. They're like, hey, let's put a ton of guys on the box, put pressure on the offensive line, put pressure on John Rice Plumley, dare him to complete some passes under duress. And UCF couldn't do any of that, and they got shut out in the second half. And as a result, a very disappointing loss that really I can't think in recent memory. It's one that the fan base took really hard. And I think the reason it's taken hard to swallow is because I don't think anybody left that stadium saying, hey, boy, that Louisville team, that's a heck of a ball club. No, I think they left like, man, we got a lot of interesting questions we have to address here in the next few weeks if we want to have a successful season.
A follow-up, Trace. You were there. You were in the press box. What was it like being at the stadium last Friday for that loss?
Boy, you know how a press box can be with the chattering class of the media sorts, grumbling. You know, most UCF fans, if they're being honest, when they predicted UCF's record, said 2 losses, 3 losses, and said Louisville might be one of those losses. And despite all of the things that went on, and in addition to what Eric shared, 11 penalties, 111 yards, right? The special teams, the missed 32-yard field goal that would have given them a 2-score lead. This is still a game where they have 2 possessions in the last 5 minutes or so. One first and goal at the 9. They were right there. Is Louisville a world beater? No, but I'll tell you what, cautionary tale for UCF fans to think they're going to roll into the Big 12 and just dominate those teams. Look along the lines, UCF fans. That's where big boy ball is played, and you may have some problems if you're struggling as UCF's offensive line did against South Carolina State and then followed it up with more struggles. And a lot of the boo birds out now on social media, the UCF Twitter mafia getting all over John Rice Plumley. Did he make mistakes? Certainly. Has he lived up to all the billing? Probably not. But when you don't have any time, and let's throw out the injury of no Ryan O'Keefe for a good portion of that game, and Kobe Hudson's mysterious disappearance as another wide receiver target. And yet you still lose 20-14. And last year you lose at Louisville by a touchdown. So you're right there. Maybe they're not the best of the ACC, but it's still an ACC program.
Okay, you bring up Plumlee. I've been critical of him. I mean, look, Coach Malzahn, before the first game of the season, said, this is my guy. They had 9 months to get ready for the season. They're going with this guy. How can he improve? We'll stay with you, Trace. How can Plumlee improve on the season after what you've seen through the first 2 games?
I think Coach Gus Malzahn, who has a reputation for being stubborn when it comes to his quarterbacks and his offense, I think he needs to get creative with how to utilize John Rice Plumley as well, and put him in situations where he can succeed. I asked Coach Malzahn at the Monday media availability, 5 touches for speedster running back Johnny Richardson. Maybe get the ball in his hands a little bit more, maybe some more design runs, maybe put him in a better position to succeed. Hopefully that is the case against a Florida Atlantic team. Should we get together a week from now and we're talking about a 1-2 Knights team? Oh boy, that's not going to be a good scene.
Eric, follow up. What have you seen from Plumlee? And kind of the same question. How can he improve out there?
That's a great question. I think he's athletic. I think the jury's out whether he could be a consistent passer. He's probably not going to be a consistent passer, if we're really honest. I mean, this has been the critique. And Mark, you and I have talked about it. To me, the benchmark is like a Jordan Travis. When Jordan Travis got to FSU, couldn't throw a lick. Was inconsistent. That's why they brought in Mackenzie Milton. He ended up beating out Mackenzie Milton. You look at this year, at least so far through the first couple games, Jordan Travis looks improved. The question is, How does John Rice Plumley get to that? I don't know if you can just turn that in over a week's notice. So I think Trace is right. I think Gus has to be a little more, and Gus, to his credit, in the press conference, and Trace was there, took ownership of the loss. Talked about how it was on him, that they weren't disciplined. I don't think Gus was happy with his own performance from a play calling standpoint. And I think he realized he didn't help John Rice Plumley maybe as well as he could have. I think that's a big part of it. So I expect a little different of a play calling there. That being said, though, if the offensive line doesn't improve, I don't think Mikey Keene would make a difference. I don't think Dylan Gabriel would have made a difference. I don't think anybody would make a difference with that offensive line. That's a big issue, and the biggest concern about that is, can that get fixed by the time you get to the Big 12? Because if you don't have good line play, to Trace's point, when you get in the Big 12, we're going to get smacked in the face starting next year in a reality check.
Okay.
Did you see that Baylor BYU game? And
Yeah.
I just kept watching it through the lens of, how are the Knights going to do against these two teams?
A BYU team that's got better line play and showed it when they beat UCF at the Boca Bowl a couple years ago.
I asked this to a guest earlier today, but I want to ask both you gentlemen this. And Trace, I'll start with you. All right, I know we're going to the Big 12 if you're UCF, but can they still have a great season? Because we haven't even gotten into conference play yet. I'll start with you, Trace.
Well, right. They're 1-1 and a loss to Louisville. They lost to Louisville last year. Everything is still within sight. But, when fans talk about losses, it's like, well, what if the team goes undefeated but loses the Black Friday showdown against their rivals in Tampa? That's not a good team. Well, boy, that casts a pall on the entire season. So it's which games you lose, but it's also how you lose, and how they lost, to Eric's point earlier, has upset Night Nation so much. The offensive line play, no real improvement game 1 to game 2. You hear that coaching adage, you make your biggest gains game 1 to game 2. I asked Coach Mills, what improvements did John Rice Plumley make game 1 to game 2? He didn't. I don't think he liked that question. He didn't give a really good answer for it. Were there special teams improvements? They had 10 penalties week 1. They went to 11. We're going to be after FAU at the quarter pole point. Should UCF 9-point favorites over FAU win that game? They should, but does it come down late? Is it close? That a win might not be satisfying with another ACC school in Georgia Tech coming to the bounce house a week later. So it's how you win. They certainly have everything in front of them, but to Eric's point, you got to show improvement. If they put out the best offensive linemen, and I know they sub out and they rotate guys, but if this is their best, if Daniel Obarski is the best that they're seeing out of camp and out of practice, who they putting in that's going to be better if these are their best?
Okay, Eric Lopez with Black and Gold Banneret. So you're going to FAU. What do you want to see from the offense coming up Saturday night then?
Block some people. Block them and push them back. Like, get some physical. I mean, we haven't even seen that yet against South Carolina State. I mean, you should be more physical than Florida Atlantic. You should run all over them. FAU struggles against the pass, so that should create some opportunities for some passing plays. Now, the issue is, Trace alluded to Ryan O'Keefe has a hamstring injury. I don't think he'll play. I mean, he don't just recover from it. If his hamstring was bad enough that he couldn't play the second half against Louisville, is he going to be quickly ready to go in a week against FAU? Probably. I'm skeptical on that. You mentioned the Kobe Hudson. It sounds like that's a personal issue that may continue. That being said, though, I also don't want to use that as a crutch, because last I checked, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but football is a tackle sport. You're going to have injuries. Like this idea that we're not going to have injuries. And all I kept hearing about in fall camp is how deep this team is and how depth they have. And yet we get a couple injuries like, oh boy, we're hurting now. So this team has to be, I think, aggressive, because you can't depend on your defense to carry you the whole season. I mean, FAU's got a pretty good quarterback in Perry, the former Miami quarterback. They've moved the football pretty well, and you're going to face better teams. The good news, Mark, you mentioned why this still could be a good season. The American seems to be down this year. Houston lost to Texas Tech. They haven't looked great. Cincinnati is young. Really there's no top-notch team right now in the American that you could say, whoa, this team is a world beater like Cincinnati was last year. So I think everything is still wide open for them if they can improve on some areas like the penalties, the offensive line, and, special teams not, once in a while help you out. That'd be
okay.
Nice.
We're at Trace Trylko as well with Sons of UCF. I will go to the defense. Tell me some positives you've seen, even though they're 1-1 through the first 2 games of the season.
Positive, obviously, South Carolina State, they shut down as expected. They should have, but that was essentially a preseason game. And I think they did their job. I think a week ago, we say Louisville scores 20 points.
Yeah.
You like the Knights' chances. If you say Louisville's 4 of 14 on third down, you like the Knights winning that game. So I don't hang that on the defense. They kept getting the ball back to the offense. And again, the 2 drives the offense had in the last 5 minutes of the game, the first and goal at the 9. Defense did its job. Broken coverage on the Malik Cunningham run, but his numbers were rather pedestrian, and he's a talented quarterback. So I don't hang that on them. FAU is off to the 2-1 start, but let's be fair. They lost to Ohio. They beat Southeastern Louisiana. They beat a bad Charlotte team. This is a big game for them. They're looking for that signature win as they move on to the American. And boy, Knights fans know that, right? That feeling of getting those signature wins 20 years ago against Alabama and other wins. This could be a big game for them, but that's going to be a big UCF crowd down there. They're approaching, if they've not already reached, a sellout. It's going to be loud. It's going to be rocking. FAU has nothing to lose here, right? They got the gate. They've already got that money in the bank, and it's going to be a fun atmosphere. Pressure's on the Knights. 1-2. Oh, right. So the pressure is on UCF. FAU, they haven't even begun, really the heart of their season, and things are in front of them as well. So important game for the Knights to rebound.
Eric, I like where Trace last week said tailgate starts at 2:30, right, on a Friday afternoon. Then he posts, this is fantastic. Then I think Mackenzie Milton's like, I'm going to be at the Sons of UCF tailgate. Would you say noon for a 7 o'clock start? You're not messing around, buddy.
Yeah, Mackenzie is joining us in Boca, that FAU takeover. The Gordon and Partners, sponsor of the Sons of UCF, they're going to be out there at noon. I don't know that I am going to be out there at noon. I don't know that Adam of the Sons of UCF is going to be out there. And Mackenzie, I'm not quite sure his arrival time, but as you mentioned, on a 7:30 game, mind you, UCF fans know this from their last time at FAU. They had some issues being nice about getting folks into the game on a timely basis, and a lot of fans missed a quarter and a half of play. So 5:30, 6 o'clock, you might want to start making your way to the gates. But we will be out there RV lot. We're looking forward to meeting a lot of fans in real South Florida.
Is it a must win? Eric, I'll start with you. A must win.
Oh, absolutely. It's a must win. Are you kidding me? Trace is the optimist here on this panel today. Which is kind of weird. I'm the cynical one today. Look, this is a must win. It's a big game for both sides. I actually disagree with Trace on this aspect from an FAU standpoint. I think this is a big game for Willie Taggart. There's a lot of disgruntled FAU people about Willie Taggart. They lost. They finished terrible last year. They missed a bowl game. Talking to people there that cover the team closely, they're saying he has to lead FAU to a bowl game. And if he doesn't, remember, it's Brian White, the AD, all right, the brother of Danny White. He may decide to pull the trigger, especially since there's now a coach available that his brother once upon a time hired at UCF by the name of Scott Frost. Maybe you bring Scott Frost to Boca, have the White Frost reunion to the American. It's worked before. It's election year. So I still think there's pressure on FAU, but there is absolutely pressure on UCF. I think there's pressure. Plumley better play well, because if Plumley struggles, I think you're going to have a lot of noise about the quarterback situation. I think not only from the fan base, but I think maybe even internally in the locker room. You wonder at some point, do players like, man, are we playing the right guy, and things like that. This is a must win. I am frightened to do a post-game show if they lose this game. It will not be pretty. It wasn't pretty for Louisville. I can't imagine what it would be like against FAU. I remember, Trace might remember this, when UCF lost to FIU.
I was there. It was terrible.
But yeah, it's
no hesitation. He was there.
There you go.
He was there. So is it a must win for UCF?
Yeah, imagine saying that. Again, it's how they lost to Louisville. Had they just lost to Louisville, I don't think we'd be using terms like, we'd think with confidence that they would go in and beat FAU. I still think they do that, but the what ifs are very interesting. What if Plumley continues to struggle? When, if at all, does Coach Malzahn make a change? He patted down the notion that he might sub out a quarterback for a series or a couple of drives in that game against Louisville. Boy, the pressure mounts on him if Plumley struggles again, right? And should they lose, Ooh, with an afternoon start in the blazing sun in the bounce house, that inferno, that convection oven on the following Saturday against Georgia Tech. Ooh, good luck packing 45,000 in if they lose to FAU.
It's a good point. Let's end with this with Trace and Eric, and I appreciate you guys coming on. You brought up Scott Frost. Trace, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Scott Frost getting fired at Nebraska this week?
Oh, many folks. I'm not amongst the people that bash Scott Frost. He interviewed for the job while on the Temple Road. Yeah, nobody's ever told their boss, I'm going on a job interview Friday, by the way. Nobody's ever said that. And I give him great credit for the win over Auburn in the Peach Bowl. And he did double duty during that month. He was setting up his staff, he was crisscrossing recruiting for Nebraska, and he was still preparing the team for the game against Auburn. So I give him great credit for that. Could he have been, we'll never know, UCF's Bobby Bowden and stayed a long time? But how could he turn this down in Nebraska? And if you can't win with Scott Frost, and oh goodness, you talk about Scott Frost to FAU rumors that Eric's trying to peddle on this show. How about the Urban Meyer to Nebraska rumors that are terrible? Oh my goodness, terrible, right? I think Scott Frost, he's a young guy. He resurfaces at a decent program and an analyst position, a coordinator position, and then he needs to make a smart decision about his next coaching hire. I don't think he needs to go to Central Michigan or something in the MAC. He needs to make a good career decision that gets him back on a path. But hey, he's had one good season, and as we know, that had a lot to do with Shaquem Griffin and Mackenzie Milton and an awful lot of talented players for the Knights.
Eric, your public statement on Scott Frost.
I feel bad. I mean, I'm always rooting for people to chase their dream, and that was his dream job at Nebraska. I think if Nebraska was still in the Big 12, I think he would have been successful. You and I talked about, Mark, I think if the Big 10, I think Nebraska's in a bad spot. I don't think Nebraska's a good fit at all for the Big 10. So I feel for him. I'm curious what his next step will be as far as that's concerned. To Trace's point, does he decide to be a coordinator at a major school? Does he join the Nick Saban rehab coaching clinic, right? Or he just join an analyst role? That might be a good move. Does he go to the NFL and become an assistant? We've seen that from college coaches. But I hope it works out for him the next step, because I think Nebraska took its toll on him a little bit. And I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, well, UCF made Scott Frost. Scott Frost brought Mackenzie Milton. Mackenzie Milton doesn't come to UCF without Scott Frost. That's a combo. And I would tell UCF fans this: how many New Year's Six bowl games has UCF won since he left? 0. How many undefeated seasons, including bowl season, have they had since Scott Frost left?
It's a great point.
So to me, that's a special year. And he deserves credit because, Trace, you know this. You cover them. He didn't have to coach that Peach Bowl.
No.
He was recruiting Nebraska. A lot of coaches in that situation would have bolted and bailed on his team. He did not. He stayed around for those players and helped win that Peach Bowl, which put an exclamation point on that season. And I think he deserves credit for that.
And by the way, the coach he took on is the current coach of UCF. It was bizarre. And who would have saw this coming? Maybe Josh Heupel's going to be good at Tennessee. Maybe as a good coach. You don't know yet.
It's early. It's early.
Hey. All right, Trace, what can they follow on social media, website for the latest with your coverage?
So the Sons of UCF, Adam and Mike, they record Monday nights, drop Tuesdays, their weekly podcast. This week, it's a 2-hour breakdown of that Louisville game. Whoa. So, buckle in for that. Mm-hmm. A lot of positivity. I'm kidding. They're critical of the team. And then Thursdays, Adam, Mike, and I, typically Thursdays, unless there's a game conflict, get together for the Sons of UCF live streaming from 8 to 9 on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Wherever you get downloadable content, follow the Sons of UCF, subscribe to the Sons of UCF YouTube channel as well.
Eric, floor is yours.
Check us out at blackandgoldbanneret.com. We'll have all the coverage of UCF athletics, just football. We just had our podcast is out as you're listening to this segment. We had Eric Henry on, who's going to be at the FAU-UCF game, talk about this matchup in depth. We're going to have Night Shift on our YouTube channel on Black and Gold Banneret and our podcast feed after the game. We're going to recap it, hopefully a win. I really don't want to deal with loss questions there, what could come after a loss from Boca. We'll have some guests from Boca as well. We have our weekly podcast and, of course, great writing team, Kyle Nash, as well as Andrew Glukoff and company there. We're going to be covering big week next week, by the way. The Big 12 commissioner will be in town.
That's right.
Big significance there, so we'll have coverage of that and much more. And, of course, you can follow me at Eric Lopez, ELO, for all the latest on what I'm doing, especially with UCF and other stuff.
Great stuff, guys. Thank you so much for your help and enjoy the game on Saturday.
Thanks, Mark.
Always a pleasure, Mark.